Hello everyone, this is Rochelle Rosenberg. Welcome again to our weekly fellowship live Saturday. So this week, our topic for now is Hukat Balak. Okay, so our topic is Hukat Balak, and the title is Characters of Service Towards God and People. You can find the references in Numbers 19:1 to 22:1, and then chapter 22 2 to 24 and 29. You can read it by yourselves, all right? So last week's Torah portion was about Korah, established the authority of Moses as the leader of Israel and the authority of Aaron and the other sons of Levi as God's chosen priestly line, right? So I just hope that you will find something relatable to this weekly parasha. So let's start. So right, I'm gonna start with the reading that in this week's Torah portion, Hukat, Balak, we have a double portion, which means we're gonna have a reference of what happened to the times of the people of Israelite in their journey um, while they were in the wilderness and as they would pass going through the promised land. Now, since it is a two parts of reading, we will also read about the king of Moab, and that is Balak. Okay, so for us who don't know yet, just grab your Bible and read it for yourselves later. Okay, so now we're gonna start to read. In this week's Torah portion, Hukat, God first gives the law of the red heifer, a special whole burnt offering whose ashes were used to purify someone contaminated by contact with a dead body. Okay, so we're gonna find that in Numbers. You can check it in the beginning of Numbers 19. So my sources is sephariah.org, and that is where I am reading. Okay. Now this is the ritual law that the Lord has commanded. Instruct the Israelite people to bring you a red cow without blemish, in which there is no defect and on which no yoke has been laid. And in this parasha, it also talks about the ritual of the red heifer. It's the red cow. And unlike other sacrifices offered at the altar, at the tabernacle, the red heifer was taken outside the camp to be slaughtered before the priest, who then took some of its blood and sprinkled it 7 times before the tabernacle. Then the red heifer would be burned in its entirety. Its hide, flesh, blood, and even its dung is included to be burnt. Unlike other Levitical sacrifices, this one is specified. And unlike other offerings, the blood of the sacrifice was to be completely burned in the fire. So it's the whole cow. It's gonna be burned. And hyssop, scarlet yarn, and cedar stick would then be thrown upon the burning red heifer, which were the same items were used to cleanse from saraat. Okay, saraat is the sickness that came upon Miriam. Now we're gonna jump into the Balak. into the so who is Balak? And I have a notes here. Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab. You can find this chapter in Numbers 22:12. That from the beginning of Numbers 22. Let me check it for you. Okay, on Numbers 22, if you know the story of Balaam, the prophet, or the magician, he's the great magician of their times, you know, and he is alive in the times of Moses. He's as well known in the history of among the Talmud. He's been very well known in regards to the king of Pharaoh, you know. So Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, sought help from Balaam, the Midianite magician. You know. Okay, so but first and foremost, we're gonna go into the related reading. Okay, parashot Hukat. Let me see. It's the 39th parasha in the annual cycle of the Torah reading. Okay, it tells the stories of the Israelites in the desert, including Miriam's death, the loss of the red heifer, Moses striking the rock, Aaron's death, and wars with King Og of Bashan. So in Numbers 19:7, it states the ritual of the heifer. And in 20, the Israelites arrived in a body of the wilderness of Sin at the first new moon. The community was without water, and they joined against Moses and Aharon. All right. So in the first chapter, what we will learn from that is obedience to be cleansed. If we read in Numbers 19, we read in Numbers 19, let's go to 19, from the verse 1 to 20. There are rituals there that takes place, and it had to be taken out of the camp and slaughtered in the presence of the priest named Eleazar. And the requirements of the red heifer is supposed to be a red cow without blemish. It means that there should be no spot of black or white. It's a specific color, and it should be no defects at all. And it should have not been used in any purposes or offerings. Okay? So now the cow shall be burnt with all of its things, the whole cow, right? Now, there are relevance to this when it comes to our lives. So in Numbers 19:9, a man who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the cow and deposit them outside the camp. All right. And then in the further verses, we would read about a man who would touch a corpse is unclean, and he remains unclean. And then when a person dies in the tent, whoever's entered the tent is also unclean in 7 days. Now, there is also a person who is clean that can help the person who is unclean. All right? You can refer to that in 20 to 6. Okay? I think it's in the 6th part. Right? You can read it by yourself that there is a man who can help the other guy who is unclean. All right? So in our part, we have to be obedient in cleansing. When it comes to ourselves, our motivation, of course, all of us have fallen short of glory. All of us have done a lot of mistakes. But it doesn't mean that it's over. It's still There's still a way where we can fix up the mess. There's still a way where we can cleanse ourselves, our conscience. Therefore, there are so-called baptisms or mikveh. In the Jewish tradition, they call it mikveh, where you have to soak your whole body into that water. But in the Christian world, they call it the baptism, and it's not a sprinkle. Okay, you should not sprinkle. You should go deep under the water and cleanse yourself. But with the reference to the heifer, it was burnt, the whole of it. So it means also that in our obedience and cleansing, we should do the whole thing. Okay, we should not leave a small spot. There should be no small spot of bad image or bad dirt in our soul. So now let's gonna go to the topic number 2, leadership by examples in Numbers 27 to 21. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, You and your brother Aaron take the rod and assemble the community before their very eyes. Order the rock to yield its water. All right. It says, order the rock to yield its water. This is the order of the Lord to Moses, that he, together with Aaron, they should go together in front of the people, and then they have to speak. They have to order the rock. It's like they just have to speak to the rock so that it would release the water, and it will produce water, and the rock will, and then it will provide a drink for the people. Okay, but what happened here actually is, if we continue, Moses took the rod from before the Lord. So he did what he was commanded to. He take the rod, and now listen. In verse 10, Moses and Aaron assembled the congregation in front of the rock, and he said to them, Listen, you rebels, shall we get water for you out of this rock? And Moses raised his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod. So what can we learn from this thing? There is a leadership by example when it comes to this. It means that whatever is taught you, you have to do. Whatever you preached as well, you have to be organized. You have to listen and observe. You have to put aside your personal emotions, your personal perspective. It doesn't mean that you must not have any sympathy or empathy on others who might be suffering. But what I meant about this word, when I say you have to put aside your emotions, is that as a leader, you will meet different sorts of people. You will meet different kinds of characters, and therefore, all of these things that you meet under your ruling, if you are commanded by your own boss higher than your authority and says you should execute this, you have to do it. It doesn't matter if you are liked or you're not, because what you have to do is to execute the things or the actions that are told you to do. And that is leadership by examples, because how then people will learn to respect a leader who don't even know how to respect the authorities above him? All right? So now we're just gonna jump into the consequences of our words to the future. Numbers 20, 22, and 21:20. Right. In Numbers 20, and we'll jump to 22. Setting out from Kadesh, the Israelites arrived in a body of Mount Hor. At Mount Hor, On the boundary of the land of Edom, the Lord said to Moses, listen again to the order of God, to Moses and Aaron. Let Aaron be gathered to his kin. He is not to enter the land that I have assigned to the Israelite people, because you disobeyed my command about the waters of Meribah. But wait a minute. There's something that we have missed. Something we have missed. Okay? There's something we have missed in here. Now, let's go back to Numbers 20, chapter 20, verse 12. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust me enough to affirm my sanctity in the sight of the Israelite people, therefore you shall not lead this congregation into the land that I have given them. What does that mean? Because of the order that they did not obey, there was a word that God had told them. Speak to the rock and it will bring forth water. But what did they do? Moses struck it twice. He did not speak to it because of his anger, of his emotion. He was eager to give them water because he's so tired of all the complaints from the beginning to the middle of his leadership to them. They are still complaining all the time. And I believe that if you have experienced that in your surroundings, I can understand and I can relate, because at my job I actually have I am actually a supervisor for students. And I know, and I heard even from my colleagues whenever they complain. And sometimes I am ordered by my boss to do something, and I can know that some of my colleagues would complain, would even say things against me that would even harm my feelings. And sometimes I could react like Moses, because Moses is just human. He's no difference from you and I. So therefore, there is a consequences of his disobedience, because he did not trust. You see, there was a problem here, because you did not trust me enough to affirm my sanctity. Because what it meant here as well is that Aaron and Moses actually had used the name of God in vain in front of the community, because he says that I will give them water, but you have to speak to them so that I could execute the miracle in their sight. Therefore, you shall not lead this congregation. So the thing that happened, the consequences, is that Moses had lost his position to become a leader to this future generation that will enter the land. All right. And now Aaron too had lost his position to enter the land. So what will happen now? Take Aaron and his son Eleazar and bring them up on Mount Hor. So strip Aaron of his vestment and put them on his son Eleazar. So what happened here is that the position of Aaron have been given to his son because of his disobedience, because of their disobedience. So there was a consequences of the future, right? So it's the same with us. If we don't do what are told us by our boss, then we become unreliable. We become not worthy of the position that we are holding. It means that that position shouldn't be ours. It should be to those people who are eager to do that, to obey that. And it is very important to consider that we have to be open in listening. We should be observant. We should hear what was the order about. And It depends if you are working with your boss and the boss would bring you into a position where you have to become evil. Of course you have to say against that. All right, if you are going to be involved in a crime, for example, you have to go against that. But since when we are talking about the service to God and service to people, then we have to be aware of the consequences of our words because it has an impact on our future. Now let's go to the discipline. All right, discipline the tongue from complaints of experiencing trials. Who among us did not or never complain? I did, you did, everybody did. So let's get to this, to the three, right? Just jumping back 23. The people quarreled with Moses, saying, "If only we had perished when our brothers perished at the instance of the Lord. Why have you brought the Lord's congregation into this wilderness for us and our beasts to die here? Why did you make us leave Egypt to bring us to the wretched place, a place with no grain or figs or vines or pomegranates? There is not even water to drink." Have you ever experienced this kind of life where you cannot discipline your tongue from complaints? Whenever you have experienced tremendous trials and you are emptied of hope, you are emptied of life, you are emptied of the energy that you're supposed to have, and then this happens. So this is the reason why Moses and Aaron was triggered with the consequences of the future. This is the reason why the leaders become so eager just to get rid of the character of the people complaining too much. They quarreling against Moses and Aaron was also meaning of distrust to their authority, to their power, to their ruling. If you, as a citizen, questions the ruling of leadership in your country, in your place, in your community, then you have to ask yourself, what are you complaining about? Because one thing we have to consider here is those rulers that sits in power, for example, a president. He cannot actually decide by himself without those above him, those advisors. So everything that comes out of that leader's mouth will come from those different opinions in his surroundings, the advisors, the senates. Those are the things that we have to consider. We cannot just blame the ruler, remember? And one more thing is that we always have to consider that the rulers are human like us. Of course, no one can like them. Not everybody will love them. But there is a tremendous purpose and subject why they are sitting there. Let them do the job. Let them lead you. If they exploit you, then complain. Complain, but do not question their power, their authority. Why? Because it can also have consequences in our generation, in our future. Look what happens when there are people who questions the power of authorities. Doesn't it? They drag. Remember the last time we talked about Korah. What it brought to the community was plague, was death. And it's the same with us today. If we complain against the rulers of our nation, what happens is that we destroy the future of our children. We give them an impression that this leader, if you don't like just one particular thing about this leader, let's rise to a revolution. And what will happen to that generation is that their mind will be destroyed, and they will not know how to respect power and authority. They will be rebellious children, rebellious generation. And that is one thing that God wants us to learn, to not become rebellious children, because we have rebelled in our lives. We have been rebellious. In spirit, we have been rebellious. We have been doing what we want. And now, when the faith comes, it wants to correct those rebellious side of us. It wants to straighten us. But one thing that we are mostly doing is actually to avoid those directions. We are actually been eaten up with the desires of our hearts, isn't it? So now, I'll just have to stop by from that, and let's just jump into the refrain from fear due to overwhelming circumstances. Let's go to Numbers 21. All right, 21:5. All right. Now, there is a fear to the Israelite when they come to the Canaanite king of Arad who dwelt in Negev, right? The Israel made a vow to the Lord, if you deliver these people to our hand, we will proscribe their towns. And the Lord heeded Israel's plea and delivered up the Canaanites, and they and their cities was proscribed, so the place was named Hormah. Okay, so now we're just gonna read the 5th. Okay. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. So here we go again. We're just rolling back again to the same circle. Why did you make us leave Egypt to die in the wilderness? There is no bread and no water, and we have come to loathe this miserable food. So their complaint from the beginning was the way they were living. They miss Egypt, they miss this luxurious place, they miss the meat, they missed all of the fruits and of all the things that they wanted to eat. Now, God had provided them solution. And then here comes again, whenever trials comes, isn't it, we are the same. Whenever trials come, we are so overwhelmed with the circumstances that we question the power of God. We question all of the things that we are suffering. It seems like we become so selfish when we suffer things. We think that we are the only saddest person in the whole world. Why should we just be me? And why should just be I that would suffer this specific thing? Why did you bring me here? Why did I live? Why was I born? And those were the questions of complaints whenever we experience sufferings. Many times we're just rolling like a circle. And it's very important to recognize those circles, because those are the foundations that will bring us into our future if we are not disciplined in our tongue, in our mind, and in our hearts, right? So what was the solution of the Lord? So the Lord sent seraph serpents against the people. They beat the people and many of the Israelites. All right, now you could see that. So there were serpents who would bite the people. Many of them died. In the reality of life, whenever we speak something against God, whenever we speak against those who lead us, think of this. When someone leads us, They actually want to give us something good in life. They actually want to teach us the way, enhance us, teach us, and guide us how we can manage life, right? But now we say something against God and we kill actually ourselves. We kill our future. We kill those godly nature in ourselves once we say something against God, because we hurt him, because he is our Father in heaven. So we hurt his heart. We hurt him due to questioning his power. Why are we suffering the way we are? And actually, the sufferings that we are experiencing sometimes are just a cycle of life, and we cannot do nothing about it but to trust God that he will provide us help, right? So now he gave a help here. Make a seraph figure and mount it on a standard, and if anyone who is beaten looks at it, he shall recover. So now the snake or the copper serpent was mounted, and anyone who was beaten, he would look at the copper serpent and recover. So there were two serpents here. One serpent who bite them and made them die. And there was another one who was on the scepter. Just by looking at it, they would live. This is also to remind them that you don't have to look back on those things that you were wanting before, because those were your comfort zones. Don't stay so stagnant in that comfort zone. There's something ahead of you. Why don't you look forward? Isn't it they should go to the promised land? They were so close. They are so close. But what happened is that they die one by one because of the tongue, the complaints, the disobedience from the leaders to individuals. So now let's go and jump to 22. Let's go to number 6. Do not be enticed by prestige, honor, and wealth. In Numbers 22:22. Now this is the chapter of Balak, the king of Moab. Okay. In 22:22, it states here, but God was incensed at his going, so an angel of the Lord placed himself in his way as an adversary. He was riding on his she-ass and the donkey with his 2 servants alongside. So this is Balaam. And Balaam is the Midianite magician, prophet. Okay. Now, he was told God had told him that whatever I command you, that is what you have to do. Okay? If these men have come to invite you, go with them. Okay, now you're allowed to go. But do as I say. That's what God says to him. But now, God was incensed at his going. What does that mean? It means that deep within the heart of Balaam, he was enticed by the promise that he will have the prestige, he will have the honor, and he will have the wealth, okay, in exchange to curse the Israelites. All right. So what happened here as well is that these are the things that we experience in life. Sometimes we experience too much wealth in front of our eyes. Sometimes it's too much for us to contain. There are so many blessings we think comes from God, you know, in exchange to exploit ourselves in sin. I just can say one example is that when it comes to social media, we know that some platforms can pay us good money. We know that Facebook can be monetized. We know that Instagram can be monetized. We know that YouTube can be monetized. What does other people do? They exploit themselves. I've seen many people who claim themselves to be believers and say that I will never fall into the trap one day. But that day came. Look what happened to them. Just for the sake of popularity, for the sake of being known, for the sake of this prestige, for the sake of this money that will come into their pocket, they exchange their dignity, they exchange their integrity, they expose themselves, they expose that tiny, tiny respect that they still can have in their hearts. It hurts me to say this, but those people are my friends. It hurts to say that some of them actually had fallen into the love of money. Because money itself is not evil, but the love of it can lead people into becoming greedy, into becoming evil, into becoming traitor. They betray friends because of money. They betray friends because of popularity. They betray family to become what? To become honorable, to become well known. And then they go out. They go out and have these high faces. I am this person. I am very well known. Among my nation, I am very well known. But what do they get after that? What do they get? That little respect in here that had burnt them, that had burnt them in the sight of God. They have squeezed that godly nature of them. And that, my brethren, is not something for you to desire. So I beg you, my friends, whatever you do in life, put God in the center. Put God not in the center, but ahead of you, in your front, in your eyes. That's why the word says, honor your God with all your mind, all your heart, and with all your soul, with all your being. Let him be in your front. Let him lead you. Let him guide you. Do not be enticed by prestige, by honor and wealth, because it will have consequences in your future. It will have consequences in you as a leader. It will have consequences on how your children looks at you. I don't think it is nice to live in a wealthy home with prestige and honor because of dishonesty, because of lie that you have built around you, with all the illusions you have built around you. I don't think that you will have that kind of guts to live in front of many people living a lie. That's not worth it. And your integrity falls whenever you do that. Okay? So do not run for these things. Now, let's go and jump to the number 7, be honest in the Spirit of God. That is in Numbers 24. So Numbers 24 consists of Balaam again, and Now, Balak the king actually placed Balaam in different places to trick God, just so Balaam would curse the Israelites. In different places, they built altars and offered. But every time that Balaam says or intends to say those words, God had actually hold his tongue, you know. God had hold his tongue and turned those words into blessing, right? So this is actually one of the things that we can never do to God. We can never lie. We can never lie, and we can never trick. We cannot pretend that we can do things and think that this might be from God and try to trick him with our own intentions, because though God had miraculously overruled his tongue, Balaam, so that he was unable to curse Israel, Balaam remained perverse in his heart and plotted with Balak how to weaken the people by enticing them to sin. That is in Numbers 31:6. So deep within the heart of Balaam, he's already having a decided he's already have a decisive subject on what to do to the Israelites, because he wanted those desires. He desires those prestige and honor, and it's important for us to recognize that. All right. So in punishment for their idolatry, a plague broke out again, right? Because in the war with the Moabites, they killed actually many kings there. But the wrong thing here is that they even spared the women. And they took the women with them. And then this actually created a big problem. The thing that we have to remember here is that it's not that God do not want those women. It's because Moab actually first did not want to let the Israelites pass their border. This is the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah, the selfishness. They're very selfish, too much selfish that they don't want people to pass them. They don't want to help people. They don't want to support people. So they want to hinder the Israelites to enter the promised land, or to go through their way so that they can go to the promised land. They want to hinder that. And therefore, that is the thing why God do not want the Israelites men to marry the Midianites. Okay? But since when the war broke out, they took the women, and it became to be the problem. 24,000 Israelites died. So now we're just gonna have to go through the lessons we will learn from Balaam. Okay, number 1, reward in exchange to execute evil words. Okay, there are 4 points that King Balak wanted Balaam to do. Okay, number 1, the king had asked or requested for Balaam to come to his kingdom, right? The king said, I want Balaam here and please send my invitation to him. But God had this is you can find this in Numbers 20-12. God said, do not do that because they are already blessed. Do not curse them, they are blessed. Number 2, because Balaam refused in the first time, so the second invitation, the king sent highest dignitaries of offers of great honor and financial rewards. And so what did he do? Balak said no again. That's the second time. Now, let's go to the third time. On the third time, this is more greater, a little bit more pleasing. So the king sent another higher officials, and this time it was doubled. So imagine if someone wants you to go against a mutiny. First, they will send you 3 senators. Okay? Now, you said, no, I don't want to go there because you cannot bait me with just these 3 senators. I don't want to go there because that's not what I want to do. Now, someone sent you doubled. Okay, the whole powerful people, influential, and then promises you that you will have some positions, you will have money, you will be rewarded or so. You will be paid, okay? And then you can ask anything. So what happened here? No, Balaam said, oh, no, I don't want to do that because I can't. God said I cannot curse the one who's blessed. So so they returned, and now God had said to him actually that, okay, now maybe you can go, but remember, because since they are telling you to go there, and since they have sent you these people, okay, go. Now Balaam went. But there is a problem. Remember that I told you a while ago that God had seen actually what is his intentions, right? What was his intentions? And in number 4, Balak tried to trick the power of God by placing Balaam in different locations. Okay, try here. Maybe it will be better here. Try to curse them, but nothing happened. Every time, God overruled the tongue of Balaam. So these are the things that enticed Balaam. He had a desire from his heart. He wanted to be known. He's already known, a prophet or a magician, but he still wants more. He's not satisfied. So in chapter 22 and 22, our service of God determines our intentions and motivation. So what are the tricks of Balak? The tricks of Balak are 4 mountains. First was in Kiryat Huzot. Number 2 in Bemot Baal. They saw portions of people. And then number 3 in Sedezopim, in the summit of Pisgah, and peak of Peor. Those four mountains were the tricks of Balak. So I can tell you, my friends, to be aware. To be aware if you are a leader, if you are working, or you have special positions, consider to respect the authority upon you, the authority below you. The people, consider them. If they complain, don't mind them. Listen to their plea. Okay, listen to what they say, right? So that's it for today. I hope that you won't be angry at me, because all the things that I read here is just according to the Bible. All right? And I don't mean to harm anyone. I just want that we all have learned. I learned as well from this, right? So, right, thank you so much for being here and listening. And I hope to see you again. Right. So now I'll just gonna give you a little bit of a song. Before that, I want to thank each and every one of you for being so faithful in coming to this weekly parasha, weekly reading. I appreciate you so much. And forgive me for some time if I couldn't read all of your messages. But I appreciate you very well. And I hope that I can have a lot of time to introduce you more also about the Bible history and the secrets of drawing. So, by the way, check out my upcoming teachings about the secrets of drawing and the secrets of painting. I'll be launching them so soon. And if you ever want to be a member here, I will have a membership page, but it will be on my website only for those who are interested to learn arts, right? So I will be issuing you diplomas or so. So for now, we'll see you again.
Takot ay balot nila, laman ang kahapon. Di na muling magkakaahon, kung saan pa ba aabot? Sisihan, di na hayaan. Bukas ay magkakaroon.
Dumarating sa ating buhay ang hampas na panahon. Paano haharapin ang binibigay na hamon? Hirap makatayo, nilulumpo na bawat laban. Tulog itong pasakit, masakit sa kalooban. Kay hirap maating, ngunit dapat tanggapin. Hanapin ang liwanag sa gitna ng dilim. Handa kong tumawid kahit makipad ang tulay. Dahil ko silang nadamdamin ang taglay ko at gabay.
Sisihan, di na hayaan. Bukas ay magkakaroon.
Mga tila mo na sugat ang nagsisilbing lakas. Lahat ng dinaranas, alam na may wakas. Tapang ng loob ang tutumbas sa pagsubok. Kinayang harapin, dagok at suntok sa sulok. Pagsubok na dumarating, kayang lampasan. Ibay ang dibdib, puso at isipan. Ako'y Pinoy, pagiging matatag. Hindi magpapagilang Diyos ang aking kalasan.
Kumapit sa langit, subukan mo na langit. Ang lahat ay lilipasin, bagong umaga'y paparating.
araw at sa mga pangarap ay hindi aayaw.
Ang bukas ay matatanaw.
Ang bukas ay matatanaw at ating tagumpay sabay-sabay isigaw.